Salutations, my friends, and thank you for tuning into another one of the mini casts that we're starting to do. I've titled this one The Spells of Summer Solstice, simply because leading up to all the things that are going on right now, there have been a number of strange articles of strange happenings, strange coincidences, and all kinds of other things that are going on. As you are well aware of, listening to the show, we like to try to cover all kinds of paranormal things, esoteric things, and occult things as well. What we will be doing is just that. Now, there's as always, you know, I like to have my timelines. The last time we've talked about we kind of talked about what was going on in the occult world is whenever we had the Occult Mayday episode, and there has definitely been a lot of different things since then that are taking place. Just the other night, the witches that bind Trump came back to perform another ritual. So with that being said, let's jump right into it. So as I said before, the episode is titled The Spells of Summer Solstice, and as I said before, we're going to be looking at some of the things that are coming out and trying to explain how again, the Black Awakening, as Russ Dizdar calls it, is happening, how that's unfurling right now, how there's more waves of satanic attacks taking place, manifestations of the spiritual war, so to speak, happening on all fronts. And what I mean by that is they are and you've heard me talk about this before on earlier episodes or in previous episodes and in even some of our videos, the fact that they are now externalizing the hierarchy, the fact that they have reached a point to where they no longer want to hide what they're doing. They are coming out in the open. They are becoming as active as activists these days. And what do I mean? Well, check this out. We have a clip from House of Cards where they basically ripped off of the Bohemian Grove. And if people aren't aware of what Bohemian Grove is, it's basically it is a summer festival, that requires the cremation of care, as you see taking place right now. This is where they say they burn effigies, but you hear them saying, "Let us free, let us free, let us free, let us free." Okay, so this is again more of them, as I said before, letting them free, trying to liberate themselves, trying to become part of this demonic mindset, or adhering to all of these things that we see taking place. You see, they're trying to foment a mindset to where it's okay to practice witchcraft, it's okay to do these types of things. Let us free. What was done in the dark is now coming to light, and they are more than proud and more than happy to do them. And if that doesn't sound strange, I think people need to understand that what we're dealing with, and I've talked about this before, we deal with these types of things in cycles. When these kinds of things happen, what we're basically looking at is how what was done before is resurfacing. Whatever energy these people are trying to hold on to, whatever energy these people are drawing from, not the natural source of energy, whatever they're trying to pull forth by I guess calling forth these spirits or having these bonds, the demonic connection, so to speak. When they're doing these types of things, they're allowing for these forces to come forward. That's all I can really keep saying. And what we're going to be doing is trying to look at that and saying, how is this trend still popping up? How are we still dealing with people who are worshiping the devil, who are practicing magic, who are part of a organized agenda, so to speak? There's a number of things that I feel like we've talked about on the show and in videos as well that allude to this. You know, the fact that before we were dealing with people who were practicing simply one form of magic, we are now dealing with neopagans and even techno-pagans to some degree. We are dealing with people who have been practicing variable forms, multiple forms of magic, and having results. I know that sounds strange. I know people think magic isn't real. I know people think the devil isn't real, and that's entirely understandable. But they think it's real, and they will do what is necessary, or whatever ideas are being put inside of their head from these other forces, or even by the internet, or by other people who have agendas, to up the ante, to increase their strength, to have a deeper bond with the devil. And you'd be surprised We live in a day and age to where people really don't care about their soul. People don't really care about a lot of spiritual factors. And in one of our recent episodes, we talked about how people don't even take the time to pray and how that's considered strange these days. It's because we're moving more towards this philosophical, amoral, immoral society to where, we have all the answers, therefore there is no God. And if people don't find a problem or find something scary with that, I think we have I think we have a deeper problem than we think, you see. And that's really what I can only get across. There's a number of things I'm going to get into talking to you guys about, like how dueling and witchcraft are actually coming back to Canada. That's right. You can challenge a person to a duel, and they won't charge you with crime if you commit witchcraft. I'm also going to be talking about Ronald Bernard and how he exposes the Illuminati. And Katy Perry, and that's very crucial to this episode, if anything. How people like her, because if you've heard me talk about it before, she's more occult than we think. I mean, there's a video of her saying she actually sold her soul to the devil. She wanted to be like the Amy Grant of music, and that didn't work out, so she decided to sell her soul to the devil. It seems like whatever spirit was in Miley Cyrus has now found her way, or its way, inside of Katy Perry, and that's what we see manifesting. That's why she's having all of her breakdowns. That's why she's coming out. That's why they're using her. There's all kinds of different things with that comes with that as well, so we're going to talk about that. Satanic rituals about St. John Bosco's brain being stolen. It was later found, but the fact that they think it was stolen for the initial purposes of satanic rituals. Who knows? It could be a replica. It could be a 3D body printed replica. Who knows? We're also going to be talking about how vandals have spray painted a church. Actually, this happened in Long Island and in New York, and that's another reason as to why we're doing this video, is to talk about why are more of these attacks taking place. Sure, it seems simple right now, just spray painting things, putting upside down crosses, pentagrams, spell words, triggering words, really, and having spiritual attacks. I know that seems silly right now, but what happens whenever they up the ante? You see, what is going on with ISIS? What is going on with some of these radical extremist attacks? These are people who have spiritual views that are becoming radical in them. So what I'm saying is, if you don't think that we have Satanists who are also performing black magic rituals against churches, against people, against society, I do not know what to tell you. We're also going to be talking about this Peruvian doll and so much more, guys, really. But to get into the kind of meat and potatoes, as I said before, given like a little bit of a review, one of the things that sparked this entire episode is the fact that thousands of witches are gathering to cast more spells against Trump. That's what I said. That's what I mean. Is we're having, again, the witches that Biden Trump do what they do. I know that sounds crazy, and I know it sounds silly, but this is what I was trying to talk about. They will consistently carry this magical force, as they call it, the magic resistance. They will continually carry this force with this agenda, with this pact, trying to provoke these types of outcomes, trying to do these types of things. Now, we don't think it's strange how we heard about spirit cooking, and now we have the witches that bind Trump manifesting. I feel like this is, again, another one of those organized things. Let me get into this article. Okay, it says, and this was put up yesterday, June 20th. It's from End Times Headlines. It's by Ricky Scaparo. It says that thousands of witches will gather at midnight tonight to cast spells on Donald Trump as part of the summer solstice ritual. Quote, "My thought from the beginning was that Trump's presidency was surreal and abnormal. Therefore, there was a need to counter him and resist his administration beyond the normal channels, like public protests, petitions, emails, and calls to representatives." Michael M. Hughes, one of the originators of the spell, told Vox. He says that he and a community developed the spell that has now been cast across the internet as part of the hashtag magic resistance movement. One of very powerful element of the spell is its ability to allow participants to take back their power from the out-of-control administration, Hughes says. With the help of the internet witches, neopagans and other occult-based religions gathered together to practice their magic. And that's what you see taking place right now, is how some of these people are using, and I forget what the ingredients are. I think it's a candle, it's a picture of Donald Trump, and something orange. You know, I don't know, but that's what I mean whenever I talk about neopagans and techno-pagans, people using the internet to cast forth, and this is where you kind of get into chaos magic and all kinds of other studies of the like. But basically what we're talking about is them literally using the technology, using the internet to cast spells to triple the effect. I mean, what is a seance? What is a prayer circle? Okay, whenever people come together and they do these types of energies, or they do these types of movements, I mean, whenever you go to a church, you're supposed to feel God. That's because people have been praying for him and people understand him. Think of it in the opposite, or in the aggregate. That's where we're at today. We are now seeing these techno-pagans use the internet for these types of outcomes. And I know that seems silly, but what are memes? Okay, that memes are a digital representation of trying to get across an ideology. Okay, and now what we have to do, what we're thinking about spiritually, is these pagans, are these people in this magic resistance, conducting these types of rituals, conducting these types of things. And I know this sounds, it really does sound far-fetched. It really does sound out there, guys, but you got to think about it. Why else would they continually do it? Why else would these types of things happen? Why else will we be hearing about disturbing satanic messages appearing at 4 churches in New York? And this is again by Ricky Scaparo of End Times Headlines. Okay, and he says that 4 churches in Suffolk, New Jersey, have been tagged with satanic graffiti, setting police on a quest to find those responsible. The latest house of worship to fall prey to this tagging is Prayer Tabernacle Church of God in Christ, with church leaders discovering demonic symbols, mainly an inverted pentagram, on the outside of the church. The vandalism, which unfolded in Amityville, New York, is bringing renewed attention to a Long Island village that became infamous after a man named Ronald DeFeo murdered his parents and 4 siblings at the family home there back in 1974. Prayer Tabernacle was the 4th church over the weekend to face the similar defacing. The 4th church. The 4th church. Meaning this is going to happen again. This will continue to happen. These types of things will happen. I know people don't want to look at it as such, but as and this is where you need to do research, or you should look into things like Albert Pike and the Third World War and how he believes that it is a war between the Muslims and the Christians. This is what we see taking place. We are seeing forces rise, spiritual forces rise, and spiritual forces manifest as well. People who think that they're not having an effect when they say there is no God, you know, that God isn't real, you know, and in these types of things, they're giving way to a mindset that propagates this kind of behavior, that propagates this kind of result. And I know it doesn't seem like it's important right now, but why are we still talking about these types of things? Why are people really literally having that much balls to go out and go attack a church? I understand that we have our differences with religion, but this is something that's targeted. You see, let me get back into this article. It says that the other images were painted between Friday night around 9:30 p.m. and Saturday morning at 10:55 a.m. at the Shaw Temple AME Zion Church, Gospel Church, and Amity Full Gospel. WPIX TV reported. Now, I don't support Zionism. I'll throw that in there. For people who have been paying attention lately and watching all kinds of social media nonsense unfold, I do not support Zionism. I never have. But let's get back into this. It says, in addition to inverted pentagrams, at least one of the cryptic church messages includes the words "Hail Satan," while pastors, congregants, and members of the community are a bit shocked and shaken by these developments. The spirit of forgiveness and prayer appears to be taking precedence. Quote, if somebody came and painted up on your house with satanic symbols, I think you'd be disturbed too. Pastor Rob Taramina of New Covenant Church told WCBS, quote, you don't know who they are or if they would if they come back. He continued, whoever it is, we are praying that God will just reach out to them and touch them. And that's a very noble stance to take, I'll tell you that much, because I think we actually have a clip of him, because this is, as I said before, the 4th attack that took place, and as I said, more of these are going to happen. I think we actually have the clip of whenever one of the first attacks took place, But what I'm trying to illustrate by saying this is that's all these people can do is pray that they can get reached out to, due to everything that's going on. You see, right there, vandals spray paint church with upside down words, devils, witch, and spells. And this is
a stark reminder to them, they say, that nothing is sacred. The New Covenant Church of East Meadow, a religious institution, the target of vandals.
If somebody came and painted your house up with satanic symbols, I think you'd be disturbed too, because you don't know who they are, and you don't know if they would come back.
Pastor Rob Taramina discovered the front vestibule door smashed, shards and chunks of glass across the entrance, side doors spray painted with devil worship, upside down crosses, out back cursing messages, witchcraft hexes.
They're lucky I didn't see him doing it.
Because it upsets you.
Well, yeah, I would have went over there.
It's definitely a hate crime. Okay, we're considering it a hate crime right now. Okay, because it is a church.
Police say the church received no threats. The harassing words and symbols may have been painted under cover of darkness. Neighbors saw nothing.
So sad because, you know, we come in here, you know, for celebrate God.
crazy. And this is really what I'm trying to illustrate to you guys when we're talking about these types of things. Is just, you know, how more of these types of things are going to take place. You know, while they're practicing their black mass rituals, while they're doing their things underneath the cover of dark, you know, and this is a lot of what they do. I saw a video the other day about this woman in Africa, this albino woman in Africa who had her arms chopped off for a ritual that they were trying to practice. Apparently her blood contained something else. I don't know, but these are motivated attacks. As they said, this is a hate crime. This is something that is considered a threat. I mean, you're targeting someone and something due to their ideologies. And I don't want to try to sound so political about it, but what I'm trying to say is what does this mean? Where are all these kids that are being kidnapped? What is pedogate? What is Pizzagate? What is spirit cooking? What are all these things? Why are they manifesting? Why are they coming forward now? You see. Why are these types of things taking place? It's because we live in a world that profiteers off of wickedness. People like Jimmy Savile, Pedogate, you name it. Right here we have Ronald Bernard, who exposes the Illuminati. In one of his most recent interviews, he's talked about how the world, misery is a business. Suffering in the world is a business to these people. That's why they act the way they do. But let's have Mr. Bernard say a few words.
Followed a not very mainstream religion. So you have Catholics, Protestants, all sorts of religions. These people, most of them were Luciferians. And then you can say religion is a fairy tale, God doesn't exist, none of that is real. Well, for these people, it is truth and reality. And they served something immaterial, what they call Lucifer. And I also was in contact with those circles, only I laughed at it because to me they were just clients. So I went to places called churches of Satan. So now we are talking about Satanism? Yes. So I visited these churches just as a visitor, dropped by. And then they were doing their Holy Mass with naked women and liquor and stuff. And it just amused me, to put it. And it just amused me. I didn't believe in any of this stuff and was far from convinced if any of this was real. It was just a spectacle. Yes, in my opinion, the darkness and evil is within the people themselves. I didn't make the connection yet. So I was a guest in those circles, and it amused me greatly to see all those naked women and the other things. It was the good life. But then at some point I was invited, which is why I'm telling you all this, to participate in sacrifices abroad.
Sketchy. Very, very sketchy.
Dat was het breekpunt. Ik vond alleen...
Very, very sketchy. And this is Ronald Bernard exposing the Illuminati. I highly suggest you guys go check out the interview. Go look at and listen to what he's talking about. And this is why a lot of these things are very, very pertinent to what's unfolding. I mean, just before, whenever we were talking about what took place in the previous occult edition of the series, where we talked about an occult Mayday, they came out with the Ouija board movie. Okay, and what's happening now is they're coming out with the next installment of the Annabelle series, where we're looking at that possessed doll literally going around killing people. And on top of that, there is a movie coming out with Anthony Hopkins called American Satan, where they literally talk about the Illuminati, how they worship Baphomet. They basically take you through this kid's come up of being like a rock player, and how, you know, he had to, and how Anthony Hopkins basically plays the devil. It's crazy. It is definitely crazy. And this is where we're going, okay? Because they are, as I said before at the start of the episode, they are no longer hiding themselves. They are coming out in the open, and they are practicing their rituals. They're doing their deeds, and they are allowing themselves to I guess assume power. So apparently there is a third installment to this clip right quick, and we're going to let that finish, and then we'll cycle out talking about other things.
Point.
Kinderen.
Children.
Dat werd
You were asked to do that?
Ja, ik kon het niet.
Yes, and I couldn't do that. Would you like to stop for a moment, by the way?
Nee.
No.
En toen begon...
And then I started to slowly break down.
Ik had zelf...
I lived through quite a lot as a child myself, and this really touched me deeply.
Alles ging op.
Everything changed.
Maar dat is de
But
wereld waar
that
ik
is the world I found myself in. And then I started to refuse assignments within my job. I could no longer do it, which made me a threat.
Dat was het breekpunt.
That was the breaking point.
And he was compromised. He became compromised whenever he didn't do what they wanted him to do. And that's good, if you ask me. Thank God he didn't, because we wouldn't have this kind of information, and having a conscience is very good. I hope you guys definitely check that interview out. It is information packed. But what we've got to understand is these people are very, very real. And as I said before, whenever we were going through the kind of review of the show at the start, how there's satanic rituals, rumors that surround a saint's stolen brain. They actually did find the brain, but I also believe that they could have participated in a ritual with it. You know, why else would this come out? It's in Italy. You know, they are filled with demonic possession. Why else would you steal a saint's brain, if not to blaspheme God or to mock Christ in some type of way? And this is what we have to really look at. But let me get into this article, and then we'll kind of move on to talk about Katy Perry and the entertainment industry, and how, you know, this is what happens when you sell your soul. This is what happens when you get involved with the dark side. You become more devious. You become more evil. You become more mischievous. You become more corrupt, you know, and you start losing yourself. You start losing that connection with God, that higher self. You have no compassion. You know, it's wild. But let me get into this. And this is from Mysterious Universe. I put it up June 12th. It's by Brett Tingley. It says that Italian police are reporting a strange crime related to the remains of St. John Bosco, a 19th century priest and author known for his charitable work with the street children of Turin. After Bosco's death in 1888, a large movement grew to have him canonized as a saint. Pope Pius XI canonized John Don Bosco in 1934, and an entire movement now carries on his legacy in educating underprivileged children throughout the world. As a part of Bosco's brain was kept as a relic by the Catholic Church and displayed in the Basilica of Castel Inuevo near Turin. Totally normal, right? Now that brain has been stolen by thieves, and Italian police say that black magic or ransom conspiracy might be afoot. Sure, they might keep it in a jar, but at least the jar has this fancy birdhouse to live in. According to Roman newspaper Il Messaggero, the theft likely occurred on the evening of Friday, June the 2nd, as the church was closing. The church has been closed ever since, prompting Reverend Moreno Filippetto, a spokesman for the Salesian religious order, to issue a curiously terse public statement. that goes like this. It says that the relic of St. Bosco has been stolen. To avoid hindering the ongoing police investigation, no other information will be provided. For now, police have little leads whoever the burglar was. They were able to steal the brain without breaking anything or leaving behind any evidence. Police believe the thief could have been blended in with pilgrims, come in to pay their respects, and quietly walked off with the brain as the church closed its door for the night. I believe it. I believe it. And so, whenever you have people stealing brains, vandalizing churches, breaking into churches, and I actually have a clip for you guys next where we look at how ISIS militants were in the Philippines, how they were breaking church religious iconography. They were going in there destroying the Catholic Church, basically, and that's what I'm talking about. These religiously inspired attacks by what I would consider not demonic forces, so to speak, but people who are under the spell of these demonic forces. They are succumbing to them. You see, like right here, we literally have them pushing over statues, jumping down, stomping into them, breaking up displays to pull out statues, rip down that poster of Pope Francis. I'm just kidding. But still, they're just smashing stuff, throwing down the cross of Jesus just to stomp on him. Still ripping off more statues from displays. And so that's really what I'm trying to talk to you guys about, is how, what do you think happens whenever these people who are vandalizing the churches, what happens whenever they get inside? What happens whenever they actually have their way? What happens whenever they actually physically start manifesting these attacks, doing these types of things, coming out and challenging people, killing people, using people for rituals? You see. Let's get into one more article that explains the times that we are in, because while we're looking at these types of things, I think it's important to understand the spectrum of events that are taking place around everything else that's going on. And what do I mean by that? It's the fact that basically, and this might sound strange, I know it was whenever I read about it, but dueling and witchcraft are coming back to Canada. Now, the reason why I wanted to throw this in here is to show to you guys that outside of what we may think, even with magic resistance, these people, the witches that bind Trump, the people that are doing these types of incantations, rituals, and things to negatively affect the presidency, or even to have whatever intention, we don't know the origins or their true intent of the spell. But if you think about it right now, whoever the originator of the spell is, he has an army of spellcasters, not only locally but internationally due to the internet. So that's a whole nother discussion. But what I'm trying to illustrate by saying that dueling and witchcraft are coming back to Canada is to show that there is indeed an uptick in what's going on in the world. The fact that people are literally practicing this on such a large scale that they don't want it to interfere in the political spectrum of things. Okay, and so I'm going to try to skip through this article so we can go to Katy Perry and look at what happens whenever you have somebody that has succumbed to it, because we've talked about Katy Perry a number of times on in this occult series kind of timeline that we've done. Katy Perry, Lady Gaga, Lana Del Rey, Beyonce, and all these other celebrities and these Illuminati figures that have openly talked about not being themselves, wanting to sell their soul to the devil, and then and getting all these other things. But let's get into how more witchcraft is being practiced, and we'll get into that as well. But the article from Mysterious Universe by Paul Seaburn, put up June 12th, says that dueling, or dueling with two L's as it is spelled in Canada, has been brought back into the public eye by the success of the musical Hamilton, just as witchcraft, the same way spelled in Canada, was made fun again by the success of the musical Wicked. Now Canada is considering making dueling and witchcraft legal again. Is musical theater that influential within the Canadian political machine. I hope not. It's true. This week, the Minister of Justice and Attorney General of Canada, Jody Wilson-Raybould, introduced Bill C-51, which will remove 20 criminal offenses such as dueling, fraudulently practicing witchcraft, telling fortunes, and publishing comic books about crime fighting from Canada's criminal code. Crime-fighting comics were illegal too? What have Canadians been doing for fun besides watching hockey? The bill reflects the Government of Canada's ongoing commitment to ensure that Canada's criminal justice system protects Canadians, holds offenders to account, shows compassion to victims, and upholds the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms. According to a statement by the Canadian Justice Department, the main purpose of this bill is to strengthen Canada's sexual assault laws with provisions such as stating that an unconscious person can't consent to sexual activity, restricting how victims of sexual assault are cross-examined in court. It's about time. I didn't know that was the case. But dueling, before you put on your white gloves so you can slap the face of the guy who cut you off on the freeway and settle this infraction on the side of the Canadian highway before the Mounties arrives, it pays to read the fine print. While the challenge and the duel are illegal, murder is still a crime, as is threatening with a gun or sword. Perhaps two senior ladies had it right this week in Ontario when they dueled it out in a parking lot with their canes. As far as legalizing witchcraft, repealing Section 365 of the Code would legalize fraudulently pretending to practice witchcraft, which sounds like dressing a witch for Halloween. Again, what have Canadians been doing for fun? No witch costumes, no Batman comic? Also, being repealed would be laws against operating a tow truck, towing vehicle after dark, impersonating a student during a college exam, and advertising drugs to restore sexual virility. Okay, so we're going to stop right there. I love Mysterious Universe. They are an excellent source of news, and they are excellent paranormal podcast. I would definitely hope you guys go check them out. But what I'm trying to illustrate to you guys by reading this type of things is that, yes, this is one of the things that people are noticing. And while this might not have been the focus of the actual bill, Bill C-51, what we're actually talking about is how these things are coming back. If you don't think that there are people already practicing witchcraft, I don't know what to tell you. There are people who are mistakenly practicing witchcraft and not even knowing it. Who are the puppets, who are just victims to whatever is inside of them, blindly being led a certain way. So let's look at Katy Perry real quick so we can talk about all this stuff. Katy Perry is opening up about addiction and suicidal thoughts in her emotional live stream. Now, the reason I chose her to have this thumbnail before we actually played into the video is for a very specific reason. Whenever she went through this live stream and she kind of explains her emotional state right there, look for this moment where she is smiling. This moment where she is smiling, I feel like this is where we either see that she's a fake, or it's her programming kicking in, or it's something akin to Britney Spears. She's losing her mind, or she's underneath some kind of spell, you see. And as I said before, these types of things are taking place. So let's let Katy Perry speak for herself.
I don't want to look like Katy Perry anymore sometimes.
Okay.
And that is a little bit of why I cut my hair, is because I really want to be my authentic self,
yes.
100%. And so it hurts, when I don't feel like I can.
Did you ever have some bouts to where Katie just didn't want to go on?
Yeah, I wrote a song about it.
Okay.
That's what I guess I do. That's how I process, is I write songs.
And you get rid of those feelings, those uncomfortable feelings.
Some of them don't come out fully, and that's why I still do the work.
Which song was that? What lyric comes to your mind?
By the Grace of God.
Okay.
I so badly want to be Yeah, I wrote a song about it.
Okay.
That's what I guess I do. That's how I process, is I write songs.
And you get rid of those feelings, those uncomfortable feelings.
Some of them don't come out fully, and that's why I still do the work.
Which song was that? What lyric comes to your mind?
By the Grace of God.
Okay. The very close to you. They're very close. They're heartfelt.
It's hard, like I sang it on tour.
Okay.
And it's hard because I'm ashamed.
Oh.
Because, of course, Katy Perry's so strong.
We're talking to Catherine. She's sitting back.
But it's hard because I feel ashamed that I would even, like, have those thoughts, you know? I'd feel that low or that depressed, but...
You have to try a little bit harder. Katy Perry, you're going to have to try a little bit harder to get my tears. Because when looking at the Katy Perry situation and how she's basically being used right now to promote open borders, how she's over here promoting one world agenda, all kinds of other things as well, it becomes a whole nother discussion. It really does. So I understand you not wanting to be a part of the Illuminati, but that's what she signed up for. That is what Katy Perry signed up for. Whenever she put her name on the dotted line, she said that that's what she was signing up for, to become Katy Perry, not Catherine. You see, and I know that sounds sad, and I know that's what they're definitely going for, is to try to trigger you and make you feel bad. But Catherine Hudson is no more. The same way Britney Spears is no longer herself either, and now Beyonce is Sasha Fierce. All of these people who develop these different personalities, you know they're up to something. And the reason why I'm trying to make the connection between Katy Perry, the satanic attacks that are taking place, and the witches that are binding Trump is because this is an ongoing pattern that we have seen since the start of this year, or that I've seen since the start of this year. Every time some spiritual stuff starts taking place, we hear about Katy Perry, or we start hearing more and more about attacks taking place kind of in the spiritual realm, or a heightened sense of tension. So I think this is from Katy Perry's 2011 tour, where you see her kind of have a breakdown. I'm not feeling so well anymore. So, since this whole little flop of hers, semi-pun intended, but ever since this little flop of hers, more recently we've actually talked about how Katy Perry was in a somewhat legal financial battle with nuns. She was trying to buy out their church, or their house, their mansion that they basically ran as a church. So, you know, whenever I see her having her emotional live stream where she's talking about her suicidal thoughts and addiction, you know, we hear about her talking about selling her soul and wanting to be like the Amy Grant of music. And then we see things like this taking place. You know, unfortunately, it's like what we're seeing take place is the semi-rise and fall of a star, the same way we did with Britney Spears. You know, the same way we're seeing with Lady Gaga. You see all of these celebrities. We know what their problem is. We could try to act like it's physical, but it's clearly spiritual. But at the same time, this is what they signed up for. This is what they wanted. You see, and I'll leave it on this, because this is something I think is very, very strange, which will, if anything, kind of, hopefully, if I can explain it right, hopefully it'll round things up in the way that I'm trying to explain. That will give a kind of a key to everything else that we see taking place. Like, why is the director of CERN at the Bilderberg conference? For those of you who don't know, CERN, the European Organization for Nuclear Research, is essentially the European equivalent of the U.S. Atomic Energy Commission. Its scientists study the nature of our reality and the structure of our universe. And this year, Fabiola Giannotti, the Director General of CERN, is an unusual participant at at this very, very strange meeting. Okay, and the meeting is synonymous with names like Rockefeller, Rothschild, along with various royal families from all around the world, and it appears to be time for them to decide what direction they want to take the world in. Okay, and what's crazy, before I continue to go back into this article, from Collective Evolution, this is put up June 5th. It's by Aaron Walia. But what I'm trying to illustrate by talking about these types of things, guys, is that whenever we're looking at not only CERN but Bilderberg, these are people, the Illuminati, who have been basically directing where the world goes financially, what the next trend is, what the next technologies are that are going to be unveiled, that are going to be released into the public. These are the people who are setting that kind of agenda, that are setting that trend. Okay, so whenever you have the director of CERN at the Bilderberg conference, one of the things that popped up in my mind immediately is how are they talking about the uptick in spiritual encounters? Are they talking about releasing more demons? Are they talking about finding more funding for creating different portals or different types of operations, different types of experiments that they can conduct? Why would something like this take place? And that's basically what I'm saying. Whenever we're looking in the occult world and everything else that is taking place, and the energies, the cycles, and how these people use the esoteric, the exoteric, the occult, and all these other things, how they use these very real institutions and very real archetypes to create our reality. We have to understand what's taking place. But let me get back into this article. It says it's the hub for what's become known as the world of secrecy. We don't really hear about the black budget programs or about people who have actually looked into them. However, the topic was discussed in 2010 by Washington Post journalists Dana Priest and William Arkin. Their investigation lasted approximately 2 years and concluded that America's classified world has become so large, so unwieldy, and so secretive that no one knows how much money it costs, how many people it employs, how many programs exist within it, or exactly how many agencies do the same work. Trillions of dollars are unaccounted for, and that's no secret. As former Canadian Defense Minister Paul Hellyer says, it is ironic that the U.S. would begin a devastating war, allegedly in search of weapons of mass destruction, when the most worrisome developments in this field are occurring in your own backyard. It is ironic that the U.S. should be fighting monstrously expansive wars in Iraq and Afghanistan, allegedly to bring democracy to those countries, when itself can no longer claim to be called a democracy, when trillions, and I mean thousands of billions of dollars, have been spent on projects about which both the Congress and the Commander-in-Chief have been kept deliberately in the dark. These projects lie within the realm of special access unacknowledged programs and are exempt from standard reporting requirements. The Stargate project was one of them. Russell Targ, the co-founder of the project, which was a 23-year government research initiative investigating parapsychology at the Stanford Research Institute for the CIA, because we've actually talked about them too when we're looking at in our episode Projects, Powers, and Psychics, where we looked at things like Project Stargate, Project Centerlane, Project Grill Flame, and all these other things. There's so much going on with that was a whole nother episode entirely. I hope you guys go check it out. But the Defense Intelligence Agency, Air Force, and Army Intelligence, as well as NASA and others, believe this kind of stuff is still happening and been speaking about the program recently. This is why CERN's presence at the conference is so interesting. Their research significantly influences academia around the world. Given the intelligence agency presence at Bilderberg, which stated that with former director Walter Bedell Smith and the many declassified documents that show intelligence agencies' close relationship with mainstream media outlets, whose heads also have a strong presence at Bilderberg, it becomes abundantly clear that the real science is in the hands of the global elite. It is also weird, given the fact that the Bilderberg conference is heavily associated with weird occult-type rituals in the form of sacrifice and more, especially given the fact that a fake human sacrifice was actually filmed at CERN not long ago. Perhaps it is simply just an update or a brief to the global elite regarding a new discovery or something. That being said, definitely interesting to contemplate and discuss. There's a whole nother world of science that it is being kept hidden underneath the radar, at the same time purposely ridiculed in the mainstream to conceal its reality even more. What type of technology lies within this world of secrecy, and what is used? What type of technology, for example, was the National Reconnaissance Officer using for 30 years when his existence remained hidden? So I could go on and on and on about it. But guys, what I'm really trying to illustrate with this is more occult things are taking place, more stranger things are taking place, more of these paranormal happenings are taking place. Sure, it could just be an update. Sure, they could just be talking to these people and getting a seat at the table. But what does that mean for the common man? And when we're looking at that, we have to understand the nature of our reality is so much more crazy than we think. They are already building the technocracy and the infrastructure for this new world order. Now they are taking into consideration the spiritual, esoteric, exoteric aspect of things. Who knows what goes on behind these types of doors? Who knows when these people are opening up different dimensions, what's coming through, and what kinds of things they would like to try to introduce into our world? If these people, the elite, the Illuminati, these Luciferians, these Zionists, if these people are the ones that are being the gatekeepers and letting this information come out and slowly rolling it out with a soft disclosure mindset, they are the ones trying to dictate what's going on in our future. And it all starts with something simple as these people just having simple attacks on churches, destroying religious iconography, letting witchcraft come back into the public sphere. You know, people, all of these things are very, very interconnected, you see. However, that's all I really have for you guys. As I said before in this minicast, I wanted to illustrate what is taking place and what strange things kind of unfolded the way they did. What chronologically happened. How obviously, you know, with everything that's going on in the political spectrum, how things are clearly reaching a critical mass point. But at the same time, how we're seeing all these things unfold, how we're seeing, you know, people, how Fabian Giamatti, it's not Fabian Giamatti, Fabiola Giannotti, meeting at Bilderberg. You know, the House of Cards Bohemian Grove scene. They're unloading this type of stuff. They are externalizing the hierarchy. They are coming out. They are telling us their plans, and they're coming up with new ones. What we have got to do is decrypt. What does that mean? We need to decrypt. Okay, now they're shooting congressmen. Now they're running trucks into mosques. They're vandalizing churches. They're breaking religious iconography. What does that mean? These rituals that are taking place, and I've said this before in one of our recent previous episodes, how last year on 6/6/2016, there was a citywide pentagram taking place in Los Angeles to raise awareness for Satan. This year, they are now actuating all of these things that they had in place. I mean, we didn't even talk about this, the Satanic Temple or After School Satan. These things are very, very real, and I think people need to understand that they are having more of an effect than we think. How many people do you know walking around that don't pray, that don't care about God, that don't care about their spiritual salvation, that only want you to look at the latest meme, that only want you to look at the latest whatever is happening, and not having any ideology, no awareness of self, you know, having thousands of selfies but very little self-knowledge. We are moving more towards a world that is lacking spirituality, and we are seeing the ramifications and the response and everything else that comes with it. We are seeing the consequences of this amoral, atheistic, godless society. And even if it's not godless, we have people who are praying and worshiping another god, their own god, with their own agenda that seek to enslave us, or that seek to keep us in a state of fear, or a state where they can vampire off of our fear, where they can profiteer off of our fear. It is strange, the days that we are living in. However, as I said before, that's all I really have for you guys. If you have any questions, feel free to email me. I'll have it in the description bar below. Or leave us a voicemail at 843-9